Understanding that the only thing that genuinely ties you is your own thoughts brings to a great sense of liberation. You don't have to struggle with the delusions of control or be tied to results. The universe revolves around you in a complex ballet of cause and effect. But here you are, clinging to your fears as though they were essential burdens. The fact is, you don't have to grip, battle, or strive. You don't have to pursue an already achieved goal. Everything changes the instant you stop thinking of happiness, prosperity, or tranquility as states of being, but rather as goals to be attained. You move more like someone who has already arrived, and less like someone who is frantically trying to climb to the top. You have seen through the delusion that you were ever lacking. Thus, you no longer need to prove anything to anyone. The self that yearns for approval vanishes into the self that is. Play is the essence of life. You suffer the instant you take the game too seriously. You make yourself a prisoner of time the instant you think that fulfillment is out of your grasp. What occurs, though, when you let go? You start to flow when you stop worrying about the future and lamenting the past. You don't wait for happiness. You're content. You don't wait to experience power. You have strength. You don't wait for victory. You understand that you already have in the long run. Withdrawing is not the same as detaching. It is not to grow numb or uninterested in the beauty of life. It's just realizing that you are not owned by any of it. You can accept the experiences, dance with the moments as they come, and not let the delusion of gain or loss control you. You can enter any space or circumstance knowing that you don't need anything because you are already whole and there's nothing to seek. The victor does not hesitate, does not fear uncertainty, and does not plead for acknowledgement. They walk effortlessly because they see through the delusion that they were ever inadequate, not because they try to project confidence. Additionally, life moves with you when you move in this manner. It's because you've given up the urge for control, not because you've gained it. Letting go has a silent power. The world instills in us the ability to plan, control, and firmly shape our life. We are warned that everything would collapse if we do not take initiative. However, have you ever observed that something seems to elude you more the more you attempt to control it? We endure, despite creating more resistance, the more tightly we cling to a circumstance, a concept, or a person, thinking that we could prevent suffering, uncertainty, and failure if we could only manage things flawlessly. However, this is not how life operates. Life happens. It is motion and transformation. Life moves like snow. Build if you're in it. You must feel. Consider a river. It has no trouble getting to the water. It doesn't pause to quarrel with the rocks that stand in its way. There is no doubt in its mind that it will reach its target. It just flows. And it forms landscapes, sculpts mountains, and feeds everything in its path as it flows. This is how life works. It changes. It moves. It changes. And you generate resistance the instant you attempt to control it. Suffering results from this resistance rather than from existence itself. You are not in harmony with reality when you attempt to make things happen the way you want them to. You're battling it. People chase things throughout their lives because they believe that they will be safe and happy if they can just get the perfect job, the right relationship, and the right amount of money. What transpires, though, when you eventually obtain what you believed you required? The goalpost is moved by the mind. You need more, it tells you. You become a prisoner of your own ambitions when it convinces you that you must now defend what you have won. You are not free, even though you may have everything you formerly desired. You're caught in a never-ending cycle of attachment, fear, and control. The first step toward true liberation is letting go of the need to cling to everything. You stop worrying about losing anything when you understand that nothing is really within your control. Like a river, you flow through life, adjusting and accepting change, instead of fighting it. You don't have to become passive because of this. It does not imply that you cease acting. It simply implies that you no longer believe that you have complete control over every situation. Imagine attempting to use your hands to control the waves while standing in the ocean. The waves will overwhelm you, regardless of your strength. However, what happens if you give up battling, relax, and let your body follow the water's rhythm? All of a sudden, you are part of something greater than yourself, floating at ease, and not struggling or worn out. Detaching from the illusion of control entails this. Right now, the majority of your fears are unfounded. They are mental projections, anxieties about potential future events, or regrets over past events. However, the past is merely a memory, and the future is not yet here. Right now is the only thing that exists. Or is the issue merely mental? Living under the delusion of control causes you to suffer twice, once in your thoughts and once in reality. You worry about things that might never happen for hours, days, or even years. You act out situations in an attempt to be ready for any circumstance, believing that by foreseeing everything, you may prevent suffering. However, life is not always predictable. No amount of preparation can cover every scenario. However, you become free the instant you embrace this ambiguity. Apathy is not the same as detachment. It does not imply that you lose interest in life or those around you. It just means you let go of the notion that you have to be in charge of everything to be happy. It entails realizing that things will change, regardless of how tenaciously you hold on. Individuals will arrive and depart. The situation will change. There will be unexpected events, but that's okay. That's actually what makes life so beautiful. Life would be meaningless, stagnant, and highly predictable if everything was certain and nothing ever changed. Uncertainty is what keeps life exciting and helps you develop. As a result, new opportunities arise. Take a look at nature. When the wind blows, a tree does not panic. Instead of moving against the storm, it sways, bends, and moves with it. And as a result, it doesn't break. What happens, though, if something is unyielding? It breaks. This is the result of clinging too strongly to your own expectations and resisting life. Because reality does not comply with your wishes, you induce tension, pain, and disappointment. It has never been and never will be. However, you become unbreakable when you let go and quit attempting to control everything. You don't move against life, you move with it. You discover serenity in trust, not in certainty. Have faith that you will manage any situation that arises. Have faith that the cosmos doesn't require you to micromanage it. Have faith that life has a rhythm, and that, once you quit getting involved, things usually work out just the way they should. Realizing that you don't have to force things, or live your life worrying all the time in an attempt to keep everything together, is a huge relief. The fact is, you never really had control over anything in the first place, and when you see that, you understand that you have nothing to be afraid of. Withdrawing from life is not the same as detachment. It entails taking part completely and fearlessly. It entails being present and giving it your all, and then accepting the result. It entails understanding that your purpose is to experience, learn, and develop, rather than to control every little detail. It entails realizing that you will be fine whether or not things go your way. And something amazing occurs when you live this way. You begin living in the present and cease living in the future. You stop worrying about what might go wrong and begin to embrace what is. You stop waiting for happiness and begin to experience it. Life gets easier, lighter, and more natural. The demand for control is a mental deception, an illusion. It keeps you caught up in a vicious cycle of worry, constantly wondering what might occur next. However, you become free the instant you separate from that illusion and cease holding on to it. You flow through life like a river, effortlessly reaching your target without encountering any obstacles or difficulties. You discover a tranquility in that flow that no amount of control could ever provide. Take a moment to imagine that you already have everything you want: the fulfillment, the love, the tranquility, and the success. It is not something you have to go after, something that is out of your grasp, or something that is saved for later. Here it is, right now. But the idea that you have to fight for it, prove yourself, and earn the right to have it is the only thing preventing you from living that reality. You have been taught, since you were a young child, that life is a game of accomplishment, that you have to put in a lot of effort, conquer innumerable challenges, and battle your way to the top. The world tells you that peace, security, and happiness are the benefits of winning the conflict. However, what if this whole idea is a lie? What if stepping into the understanding that you have already gained is more important than struggling and grasping? The majority of people lead lives that seem unfinished, as though in order to feel complete, they must constantly strive for something outside of themselves. They bide their time. They wait for love to feel deserving, for achievement to boost their self-esteem, and for outside approval to believe in their own worth. They become separated from the life they desire as a result of this waiting, though. It looks forward to a far-off future that never comes, because the mind creates other objectives as soon as one is accomplished. The cycle never ends. Everything changes the instant you change your mindset and live as though you've already won. You no longer move in dread, desperation, or a sense of inadequacy. You already have the energy of someone who has arrived, so you don't need anyone's approval. This isn't conceit. It's not acting like someone you're not. It is realizing that in the first place, nothing was ever lacking. Take a look at those who appear to effortlessly attract success. They embody rather than chase. They exude confidence rather than frantically seeking approval. They have decided to live their lives as though they have already won, not because they were given something that you do not. They realize that their inner state is reflected in the outside environment. The world reflects back to them if they think they are already sufficient. The mind, however, opposes this notion. It seeks evidence. It seeks assurances. Before it dares to believe, it wants to see results. So many individuals are still stuck here. They claim that once I see the proof, I'll think I've succeeded. In actuality, however, the evidence comes after the belief has been proven. You don't get confirmation from the world initially. You give it energy, and it reacts. The universe reorganizes itself when you walk as though you have already won, and when you exude the serene confidence of someone who has nothing to lose to correspond with that frequency. Those who live this manner have an air of effortlessness. They don't push things. They don't try to control every situation by overanalyzing every action. Since they are already whole, they act in this way, and what they do is only a continuation of that totality. The paradox is this: things start to come to you when you stop requiring them, because you are no longer resisting, not because you no longer care. Tension arises from need. It evokes feelings of grabbing, pursuing, and attempting to exert control. However, you move differently when you live from a place of already having. You feel comfortable. You make choices from a position of clarity rather than fear. You don't devalue yourself to gain acceptance, or work yourself to the bone to establish your value. You don't minimize yourself for acceptance, fatigue, or guilt. Consider a person who is incredibly in love. They don't question everything they say, scrutinize every gesture, or constantly question if they are good enough. They simply are. They produce more love because they are the embodiment of it. This holds true for all facets of life. Success finds you when you are successful. You attract opportunities when you project confidence. The craziness of the world can no longer hold you when you are a person of peace. Avoiding action is not the same as living as though you have already won. It doesn't imply denying reality or acting as though issues don't exist. It entails responding not out of lack, but out of inner assurance. It entails understanding that you are already entire, regardless of how things turn out. You are sufficient already. The result is not as important. The primary is the condition of being. Think about the contrast between someone who radiates love and someone who is in dire need of it. Desperate people clutch, chase, and fear losing things. They act as though they don't have anything, and this energy drives love away. The person who exudes love doesn't have to pursue. They are naturally attractive. They are being, not because they are doing something spectacular. They aren't waiting to be finished by someone else. They're finished already, and love finds them in that situation. The same holds true for prosperity, achievement, contentment, and happiness. Life reflects your perceived deficiencies more strongly the more you believe you are lacking. However, the outside world starts to change the instant you start to embody the energy of already possessing. It's not magic, it's just the way life is. You get what you are. Because they are afraid of delusion, most people are reluctant to embrace this way of thinking. They think they would get complacent if they don't continually remind themselves of their shortcomings. However, genuine prosperity, love, and peace are not accompanied by stagnation. It results in growth. You stop hesitating when you realize you have already won. You quit thinking too much. Since failure no longer poses a threat to your identity, you no longer dread it. Because you aren't looking for validation of your value, you act bravely, take chances, and live life to the fullest. You have it already. This is the spirit of the people who lead, inspire, and create. They don't hold out for approval. They don't hold themselves back in the hopes of being prepared at last. They move forward as though they are welcome and deserving of all the positive things in life. And life reacts appropriately, since they hold that belief. How would you walk if you were already the person you want to be? What would you say? How would you decide? The truth is revealed by the answers to these questions. You don't have to wait to feel content, successful, or happy. Now all you have to do is embody it. You're not given permission by the world. The energy you emit is reflected back to you. When you stop chasing and begin to be, everything changes. When you move as though you've already won and cease behaving like you're attempting to win. Not in conceit or delusion, but in the silent, unshakable conviction that you are already complete. You were and always were. And the instant you know this, you will discover that life has been waiting for you to walk into this consciousness all along. Consider a handful of sand in your hand. It slips through your fingers more when you hold on hard. It gets away the more frantically you try to grasp onto it. However, the sand stays with you if you just cup your hands and let it lie there. This is how control works. The more you attempt to subdue life, the more opposition you generate. However, life unfolds in unexpected ways when you trust and let go. The majority of individuals believe that security comes with control. They think they will be protected if they can carefully plan, consider every scenario, and get rid of any doubt. They want to be in charge of their relationships, careers, results, and everything else that makes them feel secure. However, control wears you out. And the more you try to control reality, the more pain you welcome. Life isn't supposed to be held closely. It is intended to be trusted, experienced, and flowing with. Consider a river. You will strain, exhaust your energy, and make little progress if you attempt to battle against the current. However, you will be transported smoothly if you give in to the flow. This does not imply that you are aimless. It doesn't imply that you cease making decisions or become passive. It indicates that you know when to move and when to give way, when to act, when to trust, when to let control, and just live in balance with life's natural course. Control fixation stems from fear of failure, fear of uncertainty, and anxiety that things will fall apart if we don't push them into place. However, have you ever noticed that the most meaningful events and the most joyful moments occur when you least expect them? They appear when you are there and are never the product of careful preparation or strict control. Restart the most fruitful discussions, the most meaningful relationships, and the most life-changing chances. They take place in areas where authority is relaxed. The mind, however, rejects this reality. It seeks assurances and the future course of events. It looks for confirmation that everything will proceed according to plan. However, life has never operated in this manner. You get more nervous, agitated, and unhappy the more you try to control it. Because you are preoccupied with an imagined future that you are attempting to bring to reality, you fail to appreciate the beauty of the present. Think about those who appear to be the most tranquil. They don't meticulously plan every aspect of their lives. It is they who have faith. They are the ones who realize that the greatest way to live is to let go and let life unfold in its own rhythm. That control is a myth, and that certainty is an illusion. They are not resistant to change. Along with it, they move. They don't hold on to results. Whatever happens, they welcome it. That's not to say they don't do anything. It does not imply that they live a life devoid of purpose. It indicates that they behave indifferently. They act, make decisions, and work toward their objectives. Instead of dread, though, they act out of a profound sense of trust. They are aware that they are a part of something much bigger than their own goals and aspirations. As a result, they embrace the unknown rather than dread it. To release oneself is to relinquish control. It is to let go of the desire to coerce, manipulate, and demand confirmation all the time. It is to realize that real strength comes from embracing life rather than trying to control it. You are not supposed to fight incessantly and strive to change the world to suit your needs. You should embrace uncertainty, live life to the fullest, and have faith that what is meant for you will find its way. Consider all the energy that is lost due to worry. What would happen if that energy was diverted from worrying about what might be to trust, presence, and just enjoying what is, instead of trying to foresee, stop, and control every potential outcome? This change is resisted by the mind because it believes that letting go equates to giving up. However, the contrary is true. The ultimate act of strength is letting go. It's realizing you don't have to keep things together. Life is already sustaining itself.